Hi dear children, good morning. I hope you do remember all those question paper patterns. Last year you were familiar with it.
Today we are going to discuss about story writing. How to write a story, what are the steps of writing a story, what all things we have to care about it, what are the important elements in it, all those points we are going to discuss in this class. Writing a short story is not very simple as we are expected to make the audience thrill from the first sentence, from the first word onwards. It's really fantastic to do such a work in the successful way. It's very sure that we have such wonderful writers in Indian English literature and in the world English literature. For example, R.K. Narayan from Indian English literature is such a wonderful writer who's famous for writing short stories in English language. And at the same time, a lot of other English writers also are famous in this field. Let's see what is story writing. Story writing, as you also know, it's a creativity done by us and it includes only imagination and fiction. Will be a lot of distance away from reality. And the most important thing which we have to care here is the language which we are using in this. The most simplified language, the localized language which the people can understand easily and can analyze easily. An enjoyable language is the preferable language for short story. Now we'll have an overview of the format of short story writing. What are the most important things while we have to be careful about short story writing? The first point is the beginning of short story. Why we have to be more careful about the beginning of it? Because as it is a very short story, people have to get impressed within the first sentence and within the first paragraph itself, that curiosity, making the people feel that we are introducing something unusual to them. That feeling must come from the beginning itself. And the second important point is the character introduction. While we are introducing the character, we can have it through different ways, either by explaining the specialities of the character or by introducing it with a dialogue. Those points are also very important. And the next important part is the plot, and we have to be very sure that we are giving a clear-cut explanation or description of what all things are happening around in the story. And the last part is the conclusion. Here you can say we can have two elements while we are thinking about conclusion. One is the climax, and after the climax we have to lead the story beautifully into an end. That together is known as a conclusion part. Let's have a look at the elements of short story which will help us to make the story a wonderful work, the most beautiful, creative, imaginary work. Let's have a glance at the elements of short story. The first one is setting, then comes character, plot, conflict, climax, resolution, theme, and the last one is point of view. Now we'll go with the 5 key elements of story writing. The first one is character, and the second one is setting, the third one is plot, and the fourth one is conflict, and the last one is theme. All these 5 ones are equally important while we are considering writing a short story. And there is a golden rule in the format of short story writing, that is, fewer the character, better the story will be. We have to decide very less number of characters while we are writing a short story, and the best choice will be one main character and one negative character and one or two supporting characters. That will be the best choice while we are going on with short story writing. The most important but the very simple tip is here. We have to answer some questions while we are writing a short story. While we are answering a question, that's something beautiful, no? But when we are writing a short story, our story must be answering the questions: who is he or she? And what happens, how it happens, where it happens, when it happens, and why it happens. Once when we are able to successfully answer all these questions in the most beautiful language, automatically we can be very sure that our short story is such a beautiful one. I have already told you that the beginning of the story is very important to make the story very beautiful. Let's see how can we make it very beautiful. There are mainly 3 important tricks to make it very beautiful. Let's see what are they. And the first one is starting the story with a dialogue. Introducing the character also can be done like that, I told you in the previous slide. And once when we are introducing the beginning sentence, it can be a dialogue. Whenever we are giving a dialogue, it must be a thought-provoking, make the people feel that we are giving some new unfamiliar ideas to them. The second option to start the story is with an action. A conflict between 2 people or starting off a situation, a problem. Those points can be highlighted when we are beginning the story. And the third way is to give the description of the place where the story happens and what is going to happen. Once when we are giving the description also, we have to arouse the curiosity in the people, make them feel that something unfamiliar or unusual is going to happen. Let's see some very important points which we have to be careful while we are writing a short story. And here the first point is to include some meaningful dialogues. The situation should be apt for the dialogue, and there be very sure that you are not going on with dialogues only. That will be looking like only a drama, not looking like a short story. So according to the situation, you can add a little bit of dialogues also apart from the descriptions which you are giving. And the second important thing we have to take care is about setting the plot. And it's how to set the situation, the climax, where the turning point of the story happens, and what the characters do in the end of the story. All those things must be mentioned very clearly, that the readers will be clearly going with the story and will be able to enjoy it very well. As you also know, a plot is a series of events which are leading the story from the beginning till the end as a beautiful literature and make the people interested to read it and enjoy it. And the next important point is introducing the characters. You must introduce some lively but multi-faced characters to make the story live and beautiful, and use your imagination, creativity and all those abilities to make it really beautiful. And the next important thing is to decide who is going to narrate the story. It's really different from a novel, as you also know. So you have to decide who is telling the story, who is narrating it. You have to compulsorily fix it. Either you yourself can narrate the story or the main character of the story can narrate it. Whatever it is, you have to fix it clearly. Let's have a look at the salient features of short stories. Once when we are going to write the short story, we must know that we have limits, but at the same time, inside the limit itself, we must be able to provide our creativity, our talents in the best way. And another point is the beginning and the concluding sentences, the beginning and the concluding parts of the story, they must be really connected with the events described in the story. As you also know, the story, once when it must be beautiful. We have to narrate the events and the incidents in an order which will make the readers understand the events very well. And the next one is students should follow the basic theme, and at the same time they have to use their imagination and creativity to make the theme into a beautiful story and make it interesting for the readers. Now we have already discussed about the beginning of the story, how we have to begin the story, how we have to go with the theme of the story, how we have to develop it, all those points. Now let's see how we have to end the story. The ending of the story comes only after the conflict is happening, the climax is happening, and after the climax we have to lead the story beautifully into an end. The ending paragraph and the ending sentence, as I told in the previous session, it must be really connected with the story and connected with the theme of the story. Most importantly, the final paragraph and the final sentence of the story must be beautifully connecting it. And you have some examples given here. Have a look at that, which will make you get a clear-cut idea on how to end the story. Now we have already learned how to write a story, and here as I told you, we have to set the characters, we have to set the plot, we have to set the sequence of events, we have to set the surrounding, where it happens, when it happens, why it happens, to whom it happens, what happens. All those questions answers once when you are writing with the help of some events, when you are connecting them beautifully. To answer the questions, what happens, when happens, to whom it happens, why it happens, and where it happens, all those questions, when you are giving them beautifully, it's very sure that you are going to provide such a beautiful creative work. When you are adding a little bit of your imagination also, it will be such beautiful work that you will have such a beautiful story with you. Now let's see how we have to write. Once when we are writing, what all things to be cared, the checklist. The first one is, as you also know, the title of the story, and the second one is setting, where it happens, and the next one is the characters, who are the characters, what are they doing in the story, all those things. And then comes the problem or the conflict which is being introduced in the story, and you have to make a climax also, how the people, the characters in the story are solving the problem or the situation, the conflict. And then comes the last part, which is how you are going to end the story. That's all about story writing for this session. And now we have to go for an overview of the marking system of CBSE. Here I am giving a clear-cut picture of the marking scheme of CBSE, and 1 mark is going for title. It is very compulsory that you have to add a title to make sure that you are getting the maximum scores for story writing. 2 marks are given for fluency, and again 2 marks are there for accuracy, and 5 marks are coming for the content, for your creativity, imagination, and all those abilities, how you are connecting the theme into the story. All those points are being considered for 5 marks. Hope you are clear about the lesson. Thank you. Have a nice day.